네, 안녕하세요. 오늘 책추남TV 나비효과 인터뷰 이디시 콥의 저자 뉴턴 라삐님. 네, 여러분 라삐님 직접 만나보신 적 있으세요? 한국에 오늘 이번에 처음 오셨다고 합니다. 그래서 이디시 콥의 저자로서 정말 만나뵐 수 있어서 너무 영광인데요. 아유, 너무 만나뵙게 돼서 반갑습니다.
Same. Very nice to be here. Very honored to be here in Korea.
오늘 이 자리에 이렇게 함께 우리 인터뷰를 모신 뉴턴 라삐님은요, 브라질에서 태어난 유대인으로 미국 뉴욕에서 유대 신학 교육을 받고 랍비로 서품되었다. 녹색 랍비라고 불릴 만큼 환경과 인권보호 활동에 많은 노력을 기울여왔으며 IBM을 비롯한 대기업을 비롯해서 미국과 유럽의 여러 대학과 단체에서 강의와 워크숍을 진행했다. 한편 라틴 아메리카에서 널리 알려진 작가로서 이제 아까 여쭤보니까 이제 30권이 넘는 책을 이미 쓰셨고 베스트셀러 작가로서 이제 널리 이름을 알리고 계신 분이라고 합니다. 이번에 한국도 처음 방문을 하셨는데요. 이렇게 처음 이 자리에 모시게 돼서 정말 감사하고 영광입니다. 저희 채널에서 제가 하는 일 중에 하나가 정말 좋은 절판 도서를 되살리는 일이거든요. 이 이디시 콥을 함께 되살릴 수 있어서 너무 감사하고 또 이렇게 뵐 수 있어서 너무 영광입니다.
Yiddishe Kop is an expression that usually it was sort of a prejudice kind of a concept. It means Jewish head. It comes from the Yiddish, which is almost a German dialect. And it comes from this perception that people had about the Jews to be very smart. And this cleverness, this kind of intelligence kind of way. It comes from having to be running around dealing with a lot of difficult situations that Jewish history had. Intelligence depends on the intensity of the need that a person has at a certain moment. If you need something desperately, you will become clever. So the more you need, the more something is like a matter of life and death, the cleverest you get. So judges were warned, be careful, because you can be looking to a very simple person. But if this person is dealing with a child, one of the son or daughter that is hungry, they're so desperate that they will become like clever from instantly. So I think this is the way I presented in the book, the idea that the Jews had to perform according to the demands and the challenges that they faced.
그 부분에 대해서 굉장히 감사하는 게 그 유대인들이 유대 민족이 굉장히 많은 고통을 겪잖아요. 근데 그 고통들을 낭비하지 않고 지혜로 바꿔서 함께 이 인류의 유산으로 이렇게 흘려보내 주시는 거에 대한 감사함을 가지고 있습니다.
Yeah, I was curious about myself. Coming from that tradition is for us is not clear. Any tradition, culture, you're so immersed that you don't have a good understanding of the aspects of your own tradition. So in this book, I myself was trying to create a certain system to look at this phenomenon of Jews and thinking, and how Jewish tradition made an extra effort to, since they didn't have a land, they didn't own goods. This is part of that concept of creating a virtual kind of wealth. So wisdom, the ability to be within your own mind and making your own mind very prosperous and rich and potent was like a reaction to all the impotent, not being potent, not being able to express that in the real world. So it's like a very human kind of thing. Phenomenon, and in the book I try to create to present certain ways in which I think they created this system of educational system, how to teach the new generations to develop in that direction.
저는 하나 궁금한 게 제가 이런 사실 이렇게 명확하게 생각의 네 가지 체계를 보여준 거를 유대 이제 민족이나 유대인들이 쓴 책들을 꽤 본 편인데 이렇게 클리어하게 정리해준 책을 처음 봤거든요. 그런데 이게 우리 라삐님의 독자적인 그 생각을 정리를 주신 건지 아니면 유대 전통적인 사고로 이것이 면면이 흐르고 또 많은 유대인들에게 이런 사고법이 네 가지 영역에서 되고 있는지 이게 좀 궁금을 해요. 그리고 그 전에 그 이디시 콥의 그 뜻과 처음 보시는 분들을 위해서 이 네 가지 사고 영역에 관해서 좀 간략하게 설명을 좀 주시면 도움이 될 것 같아요.
Now, this is not my creation. This is very much Jewish interpretation system, I would say. That many times people call this Kabbalah. Kabbalah is actually the one of the realms of this four-dimensional way of looking at things. You know, we live in a time nowadays that we are dealing with artificial intelligence, and we have become very, very. We don't value the quality of our intelligence because we are being bitten. You know, playing chess, we lose to the computers, and the computers can make more calculations than I can do, and all of us together. So we don't sometimes appreciate the quality of our thinking, because I myself was interviewing a cousin of mine who is the head of the research department of Google in California, and we were talking about she deals with machine learning. And she was trying to explain to me that when a computer thinks, the computer don't have a concept. The computer follows certain guidelines, and it works with statistical information. It has an incredible amount of information and has many tools to deal with that information statistically. And it comes out like incredibly. But it doesn't have a concept. It doesn't know how to look at a concept from many different aspects. So this is something very special that we have. Our organic intelligence can create concepts, and we deal with concepts. And what is incredible when you have that idea, when you can conceptualize something, is that you don't have to look at this only from this side. You create almost like an object. And you can go around and look at from that side, from many sides. And by doing that, you sort of make your concept stronger and more reliable. So basically what the rabbis long ago, like 2,000, 3,000 years ago, they realized is that if you can think, if you have a certain concept and you can find a way of presenting it from several perspectives, you'll understand better what you're talking about. It's not just one image, you're bringing many images. Like nowadays we do with exams that we do in our bodies, we take many pictures, we do it and we can create, you can see organs of the human being by taking many pictures and then creating a real object that you can look at and you study and you can cure. So what they did was they used systems. It could be like 4 different dimensions or realms. It could be 7, that becomes more sophisticated. It could be 10. It could be 7 and 7. It's just a way in which you look at the concept and how many perspectives you'll bring for this. So what I do in this book, I usually say the simplest division that we have, which is the system that we see in ourselves. When I look at myself, I have a physical dimension that has to do with my senses. I have an emotional dimension that has to do with my emotions and sentiments. I have an intellectual dimension, which has to do with my thoughts. And I have an existential dimension, which has to do with the length of my life, the aspects that are the wholeness of my life. That is something that is going to end one day. So when I'm thinking, when I'm making decisions about my life, I don't lose perspective that my life is finite, that is not going to go forever. So when I make decisions for physical reasons, emotional reasons, intellectual reasons, and existential reasons. Existential could also be that I'll be continued by my children, my grandchildren. So this is ways in which organic intelligence works. So we're thinking intelligently for my physical well-being now. I'm hungry. I want to make money. I want to whatever. I'm thinking about emotionally how I want to live my life. I want to make a good administration of my time. And intellectually, I want to have pleasures coming from the intellectual world. I want to learn things. I want to know places. I want to come to Korea and learn different ways of looking at life. And I have to make, make decisions about how to spend my time, how much I do it with my profession, how much I do it with my family. So all this is when you're thinking about your life, you see from all those different perspectives and what makes you happy concerning your decisions. And when you're able to put all those dimensions together, if you just think about your physical, your most immediate needs, your life is going to be very poor, very unsophisticated, very non-intelligent. So this idea, I think, is very, very interesting because it creates very faces for the same concept or object that you're studying or thinking about. And it makes it more with more pixels, like we do it on we want to see a better image of things. We put more pixels and you get a better understanding. So even for our intelligence is like this. You create different ways of looking at the same thing and you have more pixels and you're seeing the more real thing than just looking from one perspective.
제가 이 컨셉을 사실은 너무 중요한 책인데 좀 어려워하기도 해요. 한국 분들이. 제가 그걸 좀 쉽게 설명하려고 빙산의 그 비유를 드는데 1영역은 이제 빙산의 윗부분의 앞부분, 2영역은 빙산의 보이는 나와 있는 것의 뒷부분, 그리고 3영역은 이 책에서 묘사하는 3영역, 직관의 세계는 물 밑에 있는 빙산의 앞부분, 그리고 이게 무한한 가능성의 세계 혹은 경외심이라고 이제 그 원서에 써 있던데 그 뒷부분은 이 빙산의 밑에 가라앉아 있는데 뒷부분이라고 설명을 하는데 이렇게 이해하는 것도 설명하는 것도 괜찮은지 좀 궁금합니다.
I think it is. In the book, I divide these four realms into very objective realms, which is the physical and the emotional. Actually, when we think about ourselves, I'm always concerned about my physical well-being and my emotional well-being. Intellectual and existential are sort of more like abstract ideas. You see, it's interesting that our brain, even though nowadays we're learning more and more about the brain, but our brain has two hemispheres. One that is more objective and one is more subjective. And these are two faculties that we human beings have that are very, very potent, but they can also create a lot of trouble because what is objective can be really disturbed by what is subjective. And we really have to know how to put this together, how to integrate objective and subjective. Because objective is something that it's very apparent, explicit. And but we also have a very interesting capacity, which is to be subjective, which is something implicit, something that is not as concrete. So human beings usually get in trouble because we mix these two capacities. If I have to be objective and I'm subjective at a certain moment, I'll be really creating problems for myself because it's how to put these two faculties together that they can be contradictory to each other. How to integrate them is the art of thinking. And it's interesting that we were created with this, whatever the iceberg is apparent, and everybody can look at it and say, I see the iceberg. But you don't see the amount that is below. And it's interesting that even for our physical intuition in terms of physics, you wouldn't expect that below it would be so large. You usually think, no, if the proportion that I see is like this, so it's probably the same. And it's totally counterintuitive that there is so much not being seen. So the idea for this capacity of human computation is how to integrate these two faculties. And children in school get very confused, because answers seem to us to satisfy that area of objectivity. Why am I doing this? Children are always asking, what is this? What is that? Because they're trying to figure things in a very objective way. But then they dream. They have imagination. And how do you put this together so that the imagination doesn't spoil whatever objectivity you have to have? And we all have this problem. So many plans that we have some degree of objectivity and some degree of dreaming. If this is not really integrated, one will sort of destroy the other or be counterproductive to the other. So to know yourself and to make use of all your potential is the question here.